My father was shot in the civil rights movement. Those people,
let him finish.
I'm going to finish because you're being utterly disrespectful.
Not at all.
So I'm going to finish this comment. So what I'm telling you is that there are people in this country who fought, died, and bled for the right to vote. Don't be a dick. Just
Andrew here with the veil of power. Kevin O'Leary sat on live television and told Bakari Sellers, whose father was shot in the civil rights movement, to get over it. Knots, I hear you. Not that history matters. Just get over it, move on, next topic. But here is what makes that more than one rude man on a panel. So that exact dismissal, get over it, is the whole legal strategy that just won a 6-3 ruling at the Supreme Court. The same court threw out an 11-day trial, 51 witnesses, and a federal finding that Alabama's map was intentionally drawn to discriminate against black voters. Sellers was not just defending his father. He was naming what happened in that courtroom. So let's get into it.
Battle over redistricting that is playing out at the Supreme Court as Republicans and Democrats try to gain an edge in November's midterm elections. Today, the court's conservative majority cleared the way for Alabama to use a new congressional map that would eliminate a district currently held by a black Democrat. The Supreme Court offered no explanation in its order, which tosses out a lower court decision that blocked the use of that 2023 map. But Justice Sonia Sotomayor joined the court's other two liberals and said that the order was inappropriate and that it will cause confusion as voters head into the polls in the next week's election. The decision hands yet another victory to Republicans just days after Virginia's Supreme Court struck down a measure that would have allowed Democrats to redraw congressional maps in their favor. Virginia Democrats are now asking the Supreme Court to reinstate that map. That seems like a bit of a Hail Mary pass there on the part of Virginia Democrats. But the broader issue is that, especially when you look at what's happening in Alabama, there's already voting underway in that state. They are planning to toss out that map, go with a new map that favors Republicans, eliminates a district. And then you have the President Trump, sending a message to South Carolina, your home state, Bakari, saying the South Carolina State Senate has a big vote tomorrow on redistricting. He says, Republicans, be bold and courageous, just like the Republicans of the great state of Tennessee were last week. Move the U.S. House primaries to August. Leave the rest on the same schedule. Everything will be fine. Get it done. So we're going beyond new maps here. Now we're tinkering with the calendar. People are voting. Maybe those votes get thrown out. It's chaos.
I mean, not only is it chaos, but you're literally throwing out votes, as you said. I mean, I watched 60 Minutes with Governor Landry from Louisiana throwing out votes, and he chuckled about it. In South Carolina, people have already voted from overseas, and you chuckle about it. But I want to take a step back and look at this from a 50,000-foot view, to be completely honest. I think Ashley and I have to wrestle with the fact that we are going to be the first generation to actually leave this country worse than the one that we inherited. And I think for Black millennials, the progress that our parents and grandparents gave us that we're watching being ripped away from us is something that our generation is going to have to really wrestle with in figuring out how we get out of this conundrum. If somebody fell asleep in 1896 and woke up today in 2026, they would simply say the only difference is now Negroes have a TV show and we wear nice suits. They swapped out Klan hoods for Brooks Brothers suits. And that is the problem. I mean, Plessy v. Ferguson was 71, and it gave birth to 50 years of Jim Crow. What we have with this court right now, what we're seeing is watching people who have fought and died and bled so that we would have access to the ballot box, so that we would have access to our voices being heard in Congress, being ripped away. And I think that there is a casual laughter from people we believe to be our friends on the right who are showing us true colors today, because the most sacred, or one of America, is the ability to cast a ballot and elect someone and send them to Congress, the State House, or a mayoral seat that represents your interest. And now Black folks throughout the South are being silenced. And I don't find that to be a laughing matter.
Well, you know, Scott, I mean, if this were just about partisan gerrymandering, I think that'd be one conversation. But I think part of what's happening right now is that we're in the middle of a political cycle and maps are changing. I was reading an article today about Tennessee, And the lead of the article was two neighbors literally across the street from each other, one white and one black, now in Memphis in different districts. So it's more than just, are we redistricting according to partisanship? It's also, what are we doing in terms of creating a precedent for the use of power across the country, in red states and in blue states?
Yeah, it's a good question about redrawing in the middle of an ongoing election. In the case of Louisiana, you know, they didn't have a choice. The Supreme Court said their maps were unconstitutional. They had to redraw it. And so what they chose to do was I think what they'll choose to do is move the House back to the fall, and they'll leave the Senate primary in place, which is actually happening right now. So I get the argument about a little bit of confusion for voters. I mean, around the edges of congressional districts, you're always going to have some areas where, you know, one person on one side of the street, one person on the other. I live on the very western edge of a congressional district in Kentucky. In fact, if I might respectfully debate Bakari on this for a moment, to me, I heard you say that people are losing representation. People are losing their voice. No voter has lost their voice at all. No one's been disenfranchised. Every voter in America before these court rulings could go cast a ballot this November, and every voter in America, white, black, or otherwise, can go cast a ballot right now. The lines may be changing, but every voter still has the same amount of voting power, one vote, that they had. It's just that this Supreme Court said your race doesn't necessarily have to dictate your political identity. The fact that you're an American citizen and your franchise gives you one vote, that is your political identity. And it is incumbent upon both parties, Republicans and Democrats, to run people who speak not to just one constituency, but all American interests. To me, that's how the November election should be run.
Yeah, please.
Go ahead, Ashley.
I might agree with you if they hadn't said something different 3 years ago. We aren't talking about in Alabama, a district that existed when my grandmother was alive. We're talking about a district that was drawn in 2023 because there are injustices that are still being placed. We're talking about Memphis, where we're not like, it's not just one person across the street. They split a whole city into three to make Black voters have less power in House maps. The Voting Rights Act, which actually was the last time it actually was reauthorized, was under your boss, George W. Bush. It used to be a bipartisan thing. It used to be clear that the backdrop of this country, there is discrimination now. There was pervasive discrimination when the law was signed into law during the Civil Rights Movement. We can all go into our partisan corners, but to act like what is happening right now is not a direct attack on Black voters' power, Black voters' ability to represent themselves. Now, we had this conversation yesterday, Scott. Black voters are allowed to elect whoever they want. And in 2024, they did. They elected a Black Democrat in that new district in Alabama. That Black Democrat went through a primary of 13 people, and Black voters found the agency to come and decide how that primary now will be erased. And put a Black Republican up in that district if you want Black voters to have a choice. But they're not. That's not what's happening. It is a dissemination, of distribution of Black power. And to call it anything other than that, I just think is being historically ignoring the past of our country and pretending like we're not trying to drive our country to a different type of future.
Ellie, Ashley just raised an important. We might live in a country where all around the country, we have states where the minority political party has effectively zero representation in Congress.
I think everybody should take confidence in the fact the Supreme Court basically supported one vote, one person, guaranteed in perpetuity. And the rest is just map wars. And I think we should get used to it. And I think it's, as you said, a state-based situation. Add this to the mix. At the end of the day, the state decides at the state level. It's in the Constitution. Get over it.
So the problem with that sentiment is that you were born in 1954.
Yeah.
Okay. You're
Very
70.
popular
You're
that
71.
Yeah.
Right. In 1954.
By the way, I'm a vampire.
During your lifetime, we've actually had Brown v. Board of Education.
I remember.
Yeah, Brown v. Board of Education. I don't know how you remember it. I think you were like 2 months old. But I'm not finished yet. Let me finish my thought.
Drill back to 54.
Yeah, because you're still alive, right? And so there's an entire generation of people. Brown v. Board, it overturned Plessy v. Ferguson in 1896. My point is that my mother was born in 1951. She desegregated schools. My father was shot in the Civil Rights Movement. Those people.
Let him finish.
I'm going to finish because you're being utterly disrespectful.
Not at all.
So I'm going to finish this comment. So what I'm telling you is that there are people in this country who fought, died, and bled for the right to vote. Don't be a dick. Just understand.
Okay. Bakari,
Just,
please.
just
I'm not a dick. I'm pointing
understand.
something out to you. The
Guys,
Constitution is being upheld.
Hey,
Do you have a problem with that? Do you have a problem with the United States of America?
Understand.
Bakari, I'm gonna stop you because I just want everybody to reset with a modicum of respect at this table. Please stop.
I want you to
Okay.
understand
That's
that there is a
Mr. Dick
price.
to you, by the way.
There's a price that was paid for this right. There is a price that we uphold, and whether or not
Where are
you
you going
value
with
that,
this?
whether or not you value that or not, there are people who bled, sweat, and died, and were in prison for access to the ballot box. And what we're
They still
seeing
have access.
throughout the South is that their voice, their vote, their representation, and people who have lived experiences to represent them are not being sent to Congress or where they need to go.
This debate, by the way, is happening among the justices. If you look at the Louisiana decision, the conservatives are saying, we've made great progress. It's time to let go of this, of using racial
And
discrimination.
that's why I utilize,
liberals-
utilize the description of
And the
But
liberal
also,
justices say exactly what you just said,
but
Bakari,
also,
which is there's a history
you know,
here that we're overlooking.
But Ellie,
Yeah.
I mean, the 3 years have passed since 2023
Yeah.
and 2026.
Exactly.
So
It's
that's
not that
All
long.
of a
but
sudden, the country has made that
much
much
progress?
in
And
3 years.
that's the criticism of the majority. Look, there's a famous quote by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right? When
Who
the
should've
Voting Rights
retired,
Act
but go
came, what that?
who should have retired.
Right,
but
well,
that's-
when the Voting Rights Act came up,
Thanks.
when she was on the bench, she said, the conservatives said, well, we've made great progress, so we don't need this anymore. She said, I'm paraphrasing, but she said, that's like getting rid of your umbrella in a rainstorm because you're not getting wet.
Yes.
And the question is it still raining? Is it drizzling? Is it clear? People differ strongly on that.
And guess what? It can be clear one day and rain the next. And so
But
that's
that-
the inconsistency.
and the
But
crazy part is- go ahead.
I just want to point out the one person, one vote. I think, Bakari, us millennials will have to wrestle with how we're going to leave this earth. And I'm determined to leave it better than I found it. And I think that this decision is actually going to open a rush to reevaluate a lot of things that you say are in the Constitution. Because right now you have a hat on that says Utah, and they have more representation in the Senate than the people actually in
Well,
Alabama have.
I
in
got
the
a
Senate.
situation in Utah going on.
I know that's not why
fascinating.
you have the hat on.
No, I
but
have it
like
on.
you have it on, and so there are states right
I'm
now that have
supporting
two
the people of
senators.
Utah.
When we're sitting in a state right now that has more population than Utah multiplied by 10, and so if we
You
really
don't like
want to
Utah?
talk about,
I love Utah.
I'm talking about all the states that have smaller populations. If we really want to talk about one person, one vote, and if we really want to go down a path to see what real franchise mean, you might have just opened a discussion that this country should be it's timely to actually have.
Let's put the receipts on the table first, because they hit harder than anything said on that panel. On June 2nd, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 to let Alabama use a congressional map that a federal court had already found was intentionally drawn to discriminate against black voters. That finding came after an 11-day trial, 51 witnesses, and nearly 800 exhibits. Not arguably, not potentially, intentionally. That is a federal court's finding of fact, and the Supreme Court threw it out anyway. The result is not abstract. Alabama goes from 2 majority black districts to 1 out of 7 in a state where more than a quarter of the population is black. Congressman Shomari figures, who won his seat in 2024 with almost 55% of the vote, had his district redrawn out from under him. The black community in Mobile that elected him got carved right out. So when Scott Jennings says nobody has been disenfranchised, that everyone still has one vote, look at what that hides. Your vote still exists. It has just been engineered to matter less, splitting a community across districts so it can never elect anyone is not preserving the vote. It is neutralizing it while keeping the paperwork clean. Now, the moment everyone is talking about Kevin O'Leary's entire contribution was to wave it away, and one person, one vote, the rest is just map wars, get used to it, get over it. And when Bakari Sellers tried to explain why get over it is obscene here, O'Leary talked over him. So Sellers said the thing that needed saying. My father was shot in the civil rights movement. People fought, bled, and died for the right to vote. He was right to refuse to let that get steamrolled. The casual laughter at that table, the shrug, the get over it, that is not just rudeness. It is the exact attitude that produces a ruling like this. You cannot dismantle something if you first admit what it costs to build. Here is the part Sellers nailed. Jennings tried the old line that the court is just saying race should not dictate political identity, that we have made great progress, time to move on. But Sellers pointed out the fatal problem. The same court system said the opposite. Only 3 years ago, the Alabama map was drawn in 2023. This is not some ancient district being modernized. The discrimination was found to be present tense right now. And the court simply decided 3 years was enough time for the country to heal. Ashley made the point perfectly. All of a sudden, the country made that much progress in 3 years. The rain did not stop. They just took the umbrella away. And that is the Ruth Bader Ginsburg warning made real. When Voting Rights Act protections were gutted, she compared it to throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you are not getting wet. The protection is the only reason you are dry, and remove it and you get soaked again. What we are watching across the South, Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, splitting Memphis into pieces, is the rain coming back the instant the umbrella came down? Sellers also made a deeper move when he pointed at Jennings' Utah hat. If we really want one person, one vote, look at a Senate where Utah gets 2 senators and a far larger state gets the same 2, where population and power have almost nothing to do with each other. The one person, one vote line is only ever invoked to strip protections from black voters, never to fix the real math of representation. It is a principle summoned in one direction and buried in every other. So no, this is not just map wars. It is the deliberate dilution of black political power carried out in courtrooms and dressed up in the language of states' rights and progress. Bakari Sellers refused to let anyone at that table pretend otherwise. Some things you do not get over. You defend them or you watch them disappear. If this one moved you, drop a comment and subscribe. Andrew out. Let's go.